Right here, I want to talk a little bit about Bryce Young, but not really about Bryce Young. Okay, this is one of those indirect conversations. Bryce Young has been in the crosshairs for a week. I think it's actually kind of humorous, if I'm being real with you. Can I be real? Can we be friends? I don't see a ton different in his game against, say, the Packers and against the Saints. I see difference in the way the team played around him and the way the opposing team played. And because of that, everybody's treating Bryce very, very differently. And for those of you that don't know, I did not play in the NFL, did not play in the FBS, but I was a quarterback at the University of Delaware. So I don't know. Do with that what you will. If it gives my take any more credibility, I appreciate it. If it does absolutely nothing for you, hopefully the logic that we explain our points with can get some credibility. Bryce Young this week has been in the crosshairs because the team around him wasn't good enough to win despite of his low production, or in spite of his low production, like they were against the Packers. And when that happens, there is a fervent and dedicated group of Bryce Young defenders that I'm not actually 100% sure how large the contingent is. I don't know how many people are out there, but I can tell you they are loud, and they are vocal, and they are really loyal. That jump out and say, well, the drops. They jump out and say, well, he doesn't have Adam Thielen. They jump out and say, do you see anybody getting open? So much so that I went on Twitter. I'll give you a little background here. I went and looked up drops. I said, all right, if Bryce isn't throwing for 200 yards a game because they're absolutely sacking his production, they're putting an anchor on it with drops, let me go look it up. So I looked up drops, Pro Football Reference. They do stats for the entire league. Middle of the pack. Okay, they're not the best sure-handed team in the world. They're far from the worst. So I put up that. And then, of course, the response was, well, they're throwing way less than everybody else. Of course they have less drops. And I went, all right, that's fair. So I went and I looked up drops percentage. Middle of the pack. They're not the worst in the league, but they're definitely not the best in the league, right? They are right there, like 14th in drop percentage. Percentage is obviously, that's completely independent of volume. So it's not because they're throwing less. And then they hit me with, you can't drop a pass if you're not getting your hands on it because you're not open. So I went to NFL Pro Stats and I looked up average separation, and guess what? When targeted, the Panthers are middle of the pack in separation. About 14th. Again, not the best, not the worst. About 3.4 yards of separation when the ball arrives on average, which means sometimes less, sometimes more. Either way, I say all of that to say this. Don't bend over backwards insulting other parts of the team to make it seem like one of your beliefs is true. Bryce Young isn't being productive enough in the passing game. Okay? I think we can all agree on 168 yards, not throwing for enough touchdowns, the not being productive enough in the passing game. That in and of itself, if we all agree that is true, then it's like we can do this like theorems in math, right? If that is true, then we can plug it into another equation. If the passing game isn't productive enough, it means one of a few things. One or multiple of offensive play caller, quarterback, pass catchers, offensive line isn't doing their job. You can't defend them all. You can't. If they're all awesome at their job, the passing game would be better. So one or multiple of is not doing their job or doing their job very poorly. If you want to say it's the pass catchers, I would wholeheartly disagree with you. While acknowledging they're not the 2000s Rams or this year's Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they're not the best of the best, right? They're not unbelievable, but they're good enough. They're good enough for average production. I'm not saying anything crazy. I'm not expecting 350 yards passing. I'm not expecting you'd be out there with Matt Stafford, who's on pace for 47 touchdown passes. I'm not expecting any of that. I'm expecting 200 yards a game. It's not an Adam Thielen thing. And if it is, you're kind of telling on yourself, meaning telling on what you're defending right there, right? If the difference between a good passing offense and a bad passing offense is a 37, how old is he? 36-year-old, middle of the pack, doing nothing for Minnesota wide receiver, then your passing offense ain't that good. It's not a drops thing. And if it is, again, you're kind of explaining the problem right there. It says everything you need to know. They have 11 drops, according to Pro Football Focus, through 10 games. Or sorry, not Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Reference. Through 10 games. If one incompletion a game, on average, right, 1.1 incompletion per game is uprooting your entire passing game. Your quarterback isn't good enough to overcome one drop a game. That says everything you need to know. If the margin of error, if the difference between good and bad is that minuscule, it ain't going to work. It's just not going to work. You know, if they would have caught that ball in the third quarter, he would have thrown for 285 yards. Really? Was it a 120-yard pass that was dropped? They are not the best wide receivers in the league, but they are not the reason why the Panthers are throwing for 168 yards a game. Now, if you want to entertain offensive line, I would disagree with you. I think they've been pretty unbelievable given the situation they've been put in with how many different starters they've had to rotate out there, and they're still not sure who's going to start this week. Chandler Zavala, Austin Corbett, who knows? They'll figure it out closer to game time. I'm not putting it on them. If you want to put it on the play caller, you got to think about what you're saying there as well. Dave Canales isn't calling the plays that Bryce Young can dial it up. All right. So what you're saying is the person whose job it is to know the quarterback and know the offense better than anybody, the person whose job is to spend every waking moment designing an offense that works the best, is deciding that the best thing they could do is not have him throw. That's what you're telling me. Because if that's the case, then think about what you're saying. If I'm the Panthers, I'll tell you what I do. If I'm the offensive play caller, I'll tell you what I do. I pump Bryce Young with confidence because it doesn't make sense to shake him, right? I don't care if I believe it or not. I'm telling him he's my guy. I'm telling him he has a long leash. I'm telling him we're building something. Which, by the way, is why I can never be a coach, because I do think at times you have to lie to players, and I would have a hard time with that. I'm pumping him with confidence, and I'm letting him throw it. When the defense sells out to stop Rico Dowdle, I'm calling the deep ball. I'm giving him the dig in the post. And I'm saying if that safety takes half a step forward, if he buzzes his feet, Tepper and McMillan run by him, we're going for pay dirt. And I'm seeing if it works. If it's an incomplete, fine. At least you showed the defense you're willing. If it's complete, great. Let's shut the haters up. If it's an interception, well, then you know what the problem is, right? And if it happens too many times, you know what the problem is, and then you got to fix it with personnel. Then you look to Dan Morgan and you say, this is what we got to do. But I don't think it's good business to just start tearing down other parts of your team unnecessarily and unwarranted, because you're so dead set on making sure that people aren't mean to the quarterback. And that's coming from, like I said, I played a little former quarterback, played a little quarterback in my day, and I never made it that far, but I'll tell you what you know as a quarterback from Pop Warner on up. You get all the credit when things are going well, whether it's deserve it or not, and you get all the blame when things are going poorly, and it's not always deserved there either. But you know, you sign up for it, you're aware of it. Matter of fact, sometimes you attract blame when things are going poorly. You try to be a magnet for it because you know you can take it because you signed up for it. There's no reason for anybody to be deflecting things, especially to unwarranted targets, to make sure Bryce avoids the vitriol.